Okay. Good morning and welcome everyone. I'm Zanae Dames, the Marketing and Event Coordinator Digital, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the information webinar on our open call for proposals in technology leadership. Before we get started, we respectfully acknowledge that in Canada, we live, work and learn on the unceded traditional and ancestral land of Indigenous people. As myself and much of the digital team are based in Vancouver, British Columbia, we are gathered here on the traditional ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh peoples, and we encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge and let us know in the chat the traditional territory that you are joining us from. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available to access on our website within the next few days. If at any point during the session you have a question, please type it into the chat and we'll address them at the end during the Q&A portion. Joining me today are two of my wonderful colleagues, Nadia, our Programs Director, and Jen, our Programs Manager. Many of you may already know Jen and Nadia from our previous call cycles, and today they'll be hosting the presentation and answering any of the questions you may have during the Q&A. And that's it from me. I'll be handing it over to Jen to take over this info webinar. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks so much, Zanae. Bonjour, everyone, and welcome. It's wonderful to have so many of you joining in from across the country, and thrilled that you can join us as we share a little bit on digital, an overview of the current call for proposals, pathway to success, and as Zanae mentioned, time set aside for Q&A at the end, and we encourage you to post those questions in the chat as you move through this with us. So if we can go to the next slide, please. And the next slide after that. So as we take a moment to sort of look at an introduction to digital, spend a moment sort of on who we are and how we work. So next slide, please. At Digital, we accelerate the development and adoption of digital technologies that help the advancement towards a net zero society, to building a healthier Canada, driving economic productivity, and producing a digitally skilled workforce. As one of 5 global innovation clusters, we are pan-Canadian with a BC-based physical location, with diverse representation across sectors and across nearly all provinces and territories. And with phase 2 of the program having started April 1, we continue to advance this Made in Canada for the World collaborative approach to commercialization and productization of R&D, which we'll speak to a little bit more on. Next slide, please. If we take a moment to look at sort of our collective snapshot of our impact, our co-investment has supported development across our investment portfolio of technology leadership, COVID, and capacity building projects to date. Our projects are exploring international partnerships to expand their global opportunity and being adopted at global levels. For example, the World Health Organization recently adopted a Vancouver-developed platform, making antimicrobial resistance guidance accessible globally. Of the nearly 500 IP assets generated to date, over 50 are patent applications. And in the knockoff effect of the $800+ million of new funds raised, over 500 million of that has been raised by SMEs. The creation of these innovative solutions contributing to the retention and creation of Canadian jobs, and we're complementing these initiatives with investments in digital skilling. Next slide, please. So how does all of this collectively come together? Through this collaborative innovation model, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Consortia composition and size are unique to each solution, like the problems they're aiming to solve. The framework connects partners across industry, academia, government, includes advisors and other eco-stakeholder invested in these innovations, and the multi-party agreement selected that projects sign represents the vehicle for the voices at the table. And for each organization who's at the table, they are participating and contributing in a meaningful way in order to invest and advance in these digital innovations. Next slide, please. When we think of demand-based thinking meets cross-sector collaboration, the approach is industry-led, and these investments in Canadian SMEs are propping up growth in the innovation ecosystem. Everyone at the table is coming together, and this unified voice of solving these BHAGs, these big, hairy, audacious goals that are set out, and as we're seeing, can include even having competitors around the table to drive this. Of the assets generated to date, nearly 80% are those by Canadian SMEs. Roughly 70% of investments are benefiting SMEs and supporting new IP, market expansion, and scale up, and all are Canadian owned. The customer demand side voice is a key input and is at the table and from the early stages. It's the buyer's insights that help to inform solution development, as well as providing guidance, advice, and market validation through early customer adoption. It's through this demand-based model where all the pieces will come together and everyone working as a collective together is better than any single organization can do alone. Next slide, please. And as we look at Digital's member and associates, of the 1,200 organization member industries, they include technology, health, natural resources, financial services, professional services, and education and research, to name a few. And in addition to the select co-investment and project collaboration, as noted in this slide, associates and members also have access, for example, to thought leadership webinars offered throughout the year. They are able to forge new connections, to expand and establish new partnerships, and explore opportunities to license their created IP assets through Digital's IP registry. Next slide, please. I'll hand it over to Nadia.
Welcome, everyone. So for today, we had an opportunity for Jen to kind of walk through what makes us different. And we thought we would spend a little bit of time on the co-investment model before we go into the program itself. So the co-investment model itself is a concept that Digital, in addition to all the consortium partners, whether those are industries, academics, government, we are all investing in this project together. Our co-investment is based on certain principles. Those are that the work is incremental, that is not already in progress, that it is new to the business, is reasonable and directly linked to the project activities. We co-invest on a cost basis, so that means that there's no markup over here, and we invest in the direct costs related to your project. So that's salary, which includes your basic salary, parts of your discretionary benefits, as well as your statutory benefits. There's capital expenditures, with the caveat that if it's more than $1 million, it needs to be pre-approved by us. There's foreign cost, so cost that is outside of Canada, again, needs to be pre-approved by us. However, if it's reasonable and there's a strong case that the work cannot happen in Canada, then we will co-invest on those costs. Consortium partners cannot make a profit. This is a R&D experiment. This is work that is supposed to provide the foundation for organizations to move forward towards commercialization, and the project itself is not one to make a profit in. We also want to see skin in the game. That is, all consortium members have a meaningful level of co-investment. And when we talk about co-investment, it's not just dollars. It is, there is services, there's access to markets, there's research, there's other in-kind services that may be provided to the project and sort of pull that consortium together to better deliver on the project outcomes. Next slide, please. The co-investment model is based on cost recovery. So with that, what that means is that each member needs to incur the cost 100%, and then we will co-invest on a basis of 35% of eligible costs. It should be noted that the project fees that were I think 2-3 slides is just above this one, that we deduct 5% of that project-based membership fee from the amount that's given. So what net amount that you are getting back from us is 30% of the cost that you have incurred. Eligible organizations to receive co-investment from us are the for-profit organizations. You have to be, if you're a non-for-profit, then more than 50% of your funding is coming from private sources. Non-federal crown corporations that derive their funding from commercial activities, and Indigenous organizations. In order to receive the co-investment from us, you do have to be a member, in addition to all of those eligible costs. So now with that sort of like some of those basics and foundational pieces of what it means for us to co-invest, I'm just going to take a little bit of time to go over the current call that we have going on and just talk through our areas of interest in terms of investments, what is the eligibility for participation, and the application and selection process. Next slide, please. So for the call for proposals is really an opportunity for us to strengthen what is our focus here at Digital. That is to support health and wellness projects, that is for Canadians and for around the world, make advances in environmental health and environmental stewardship, and also to be able to build some of that economic potential for Made in Canada AI technology. Next slide, please. So this call, we actually we announced two programs together. So there's the Technology Leadership Program, which is based on investment from the Global Innovation Cluster Program. And it is focused on the development of novel and innovative digital solutions and getting those solutions into that early commercialization phases with an early adopter and with some of those validation and demonstration that will support future commercializations. The second program that we will be talking about more at tomorrow's webinar is the Horizon AI Technology Commercialization call. And this one is focused on the AI adoption. So solutions that have already been developed or are close to being developed and are looking for commercial opportunities for commercial adoption. So this is funded under the Pan-Canadian AI strategy. And so for more details on that, we'll speak about it tomorrow. Next slide, please. So the technology leadership's areas of interest, so there's two of them. There's health and there's natural resources. You know, the short version of it is that we are looking to improve two of the most important systems that exist for mankind. One is our healthcare system, and the second is our natural resources system. In the healthcare, we are explicitly focusing on better access to healthcare, whether that is remote care, that is care at home, improved outcomes in terms of better treatment, more personalized healthcare, and support for diagnostics. And a sustainable healthcare system, really addressing some of the pain points in terms of burden on some of those frontline healthcare workers that really got amplified during COVID and continues to be eroding a lot of our healthcare systems. In the natural resources area, we're looking at improving and the mining, supporting this sustainability of our mining sector, supporting agriculture and our food systems, and supporting productivity and oversight and management of our forestry resources. Next slide, please. So some of the eligibility criteria in the Technology Leadership Program is that the project is producing novel technology solutions with the aim to productize and commercialize these solutions in the near term. We're looking for big, bold, ambitious projects with a minimum total cost of 20 million. And we're looking for these projects to be completed before December 2027. Our assumption is that these projects will last over 3 years, so they're a long-term project. We're looking to work on the consortium setup, and as Jen sort of showed that sort of wheel of all our consortium partners, we really see that to be the power and the engine that drives many of our projects. As part of building that consortium, we're looking for at least one Canadian SME, ideally having that SME who owns the technology solution be the lead on the project. We're looking for an academic or research partner that will be part of the project and may be involved in many areas of the project, including research, evaluation, demonstration, or even providing internships and other access to some of the students from the institution. You know, the demand-based component of our model requires that we have a strong voice of the customer integrated in how we are delivering the project. And to that effect, we're looking for a target customer, or at least one, if not more, to be part of the project. And we also encourage, you know, non-Canadian and multinational participants to be part of the project. While we may not be able to directly co-invest with these partners, the opportunity to work with some of the best in class that Canada has to offer and open up those international markets and opportunities is something that, you know, really excites us. And we're looking for the team to collectively have like a strong commercial track record. And that would mean that having the skill sets and the network to be able to take the technology solutions that we are investing in to market. Our projects are looking to create new intellectual properties. And that is something that we're incredibly proud of. As Jen had kind of spoken to, you know, we've got our projects have delivered an incredible amount of intellectual properties. We feel very strongly that as stewards of taxpayer money, that we will invest in made in Canada IP, stay in Canada IP. And so that is an important part as you are looking at your project ideas, to make sure that you understand that we will only fund IP that we see, you know, that will be owned by Canadian entities, and also even background IP improvements and enhancements on IP that belong in Canada. Do take a moment to go through the Cycle 6 program guide. It's on our website. You know, it's 20 pages. It's quite a read. Grab your highlighter, but there's a lot of information in there. This is just a quick snapshot of what is in there, but a lot of the details regarding eligibility are sort of over there. Have it printed out. Keep referring to it. It will be a great source of information for everybody. Next slide, please. So the application process. So we have a two-step application process, though we do have a triage section right up front. So we are looking for project teams to be sharing their project concepts with us. We have an online form, which is available on our website. You can fill out that form. It has about 12 questions in there. Helps us understand where you are in your project concepts in terms of the novelty of the technology, the consortium, as well as some of the pre-validations and market-based validations that should be in place before you put a project into us. For projects that we see are a fit for our program, you will be invited into the first step of the proposal, which is the expression of interest. The expression of interest intention is really for us at Digital to assess whether the project is eligible. Do you meet the criteria that I sort of summarized in the slide before, but is detailed out in the program guide? Are you a fit? You know, are you in the areas of interest? Is the organizations are in Canada? Is the funding appropriate, etc.? And the completeness or readiness of the project in terms of being able to execute over the next couple of months. This assessment is being done internally by a Digital team. Anybody who is invited to the EOI can also let us know if there's any conflict of interest that exists with the team members that will be reviewing the application. For folks that are approved or, you know, are from this assessment, we'll go into the full project proposal. And this is really, the intention here is to determine the potential of the project ideas, both in terms of scaling of the organizations and the ability of the organizations to scale, the commercial and the ecosystem impact. This will see you guys working a lot more on the, you know, detailing out the budgets, really deep diving into the IP and data requirements and data sharing requirements within the project, and doing, you know, some financial due diligence on the organizations that will be participating in the project. The assessment for a full project proposal is done through an independent project selection committee. We will be sharing the members of that committee over the next couple of weeks on our website. This committee will be making a recommendation for investment to us, and that will be ratified by our board, and that would be a commitment to a project. Following an award by us, which usually comes in the form of a letter signed by our chief investment officer, we will hit the most exciting part, which is the contracting part. We're looking for that for contracts to be signed in 60 days. It is worth noting that that collaborative framework that sort of is the secret sauce of many of the projects that we're investing in is legalized through this through a master project agreement, which is also a multi-party agreement, which means that the core consortiums that have the high level of financial service, in-kind, and other contributions to the projects will all be signing that same contract. This will also include us at Digital. This will ensure that we have oversight, transparency, clarity in terms of who is bringing what IP, who's taking what IP, and what are the expectations in terms of delivery of the project outcomes, both within the project and after the project. Next slide, please. So in terms of timelines, and this is the number one question that we get asked, is what is the deadline? There is no deadline. This is a continuous intake, and we will run the call until all funds are committed. As a quick reminder, we have $65 million to commit, which roughly translates to about 10 to 12 projects that we will be investing through the technology leadership stream. The call was announced on the 31st of May. We're looking, so concepts have already started coming in. And so we're looking for some of the earliest EOI submissions to take place in early July, some of the earliest FPP submissions to take place in the first half of August, and for us to have start contracting in the fall. So there isn't, usually we will do our evaluations based on the first completed submission and will be first evaluated. So while there is no deadline, because the process has started, I do urge you to, if you're thinking about putting in a project, fill out the concept, and so that we can have you in the pipeline and we can work through it. It should be noted that as we make our commitments and as the funding pool sort of starts getting allocated to these projects, we will be updating our website so that everybody has access and understands how much funding is left, so that you know if it's worth the, if at that point it's worth the effort to kind of start into a proposal process. We may also, if we find that the pipeline is quite full and robust, put a pause on the intake so that we can work with each of those project teams and make sure that we have the bandwidth and the funding to support any new intakes. Next slide, please. As you're putting your project concepts together and as you're thinking through your project, it's important to consider the evaluation criteria. You'll see in the program guide that each one of these sections is detailed out. So we are looking at four broad areas. So we've got the team and management plan, which is about 25% of your evaluation score. Your commercial impact, which is 35%. Technology innovation, 25%, and ecosystem impact, 15%. So I won't go into the details of what this is because just following the next couple of slides, Jen is going to walk through what are some of the key pieces that you need to be considering as you're looking at it. But as a note, I would say, to have your program guide and take a look at all of those pieces that will, that will inform the scoring for you and make sure that you feel confident that if there are any gaps, that you can fill those gaps within, if not within the proposal period, within the first quarter of the project execution. So with that, I'll pass it back to Jen to go through some of the success tips for you guys.
Thank you, Nadia. So as Nadia mentioned, we'll take a moment to review some of these pieces. And again, highly encourage you as you're listening in, and sort of one of the takeaways is to really sort of do a deep dive in the guide that provides a lot more of the detail there. So next slide, please. When we look at sort of the general tips, you'll see, and by no means is this list exhaustive, it's just really designed to sort of get you started with some of the points to sort of to think through, and sort of a recap as we looked from some of the earlier slides. In this collaborative innovation model, you come together as a collective in a clear one voice, and sort of thus it's important, as you're starting to formulate this, to determine, who's going to be holding the pen on that, and really sort of to ensure that as you're sort of weaving your concept together, and for those that move on to the next sort of phases, is that there is that clear, cohesive one voice. You're staying the course together from the time you start building out your concept through the application journey and beyond for those who move through to the contracting phase. As you begin to formulate your concept and your vision, really sort of ensuring as a group, that you're having, and if you haven't, sort of started, earlier on in the process, we'll start to have those hard conversations and starting them as early as possible. And it's really important to point out, not only to have that amongst yourselves as a consortium, but equally within your respective organizations, as sort of from experience, as we've seen those inter, and also more importantly as well, those intra sort of organizational dialogues we've witnessed may uncover niggles previously unknown to yourselves. There may be sort of things that within your organization you may need to work through in order to have the assurances and proceeding, in order to make sure sort of that you've got those appropriate folks at those different levels within your organization on board, and sort of clearing things through. So hence sort of the importance of starting off and starting off early. Next slide, please. If we now sort of expand this a little bit further, when we look at the team and the management plan, the team is really the foundation of successful projects. It's something that we reiterate very often in this journey. I think we sort of have, sort of permanent tattoos on our arms that say it's all about the people. I know if there's one thing that we can see collectively from successful projects, it really is when everybody sort of comes together, everyone is understanding, of each other's, strengths, but also where there may be sort of, limitations within organizations, whether that's, approval timelines, whether that's, layers of approvals, whatever that may be, that they all really fundamentally understand that. Also, what's really sort of key is assembling the right consortium across the organizations, and really encouraging and ensuring that you're engaging the decision makers from the outset. So that is the project sponsors, that is the lead representatives, and really sort of making sure that as you're moving through these items, and that those right people are engaged at those right moments to help in that. And, to sort of what Nadia was sort of speaking to earlier, is really sort of ensuring that you're keeping that product, that commercial focus, sort of at the helm there, and arriving at that clarity of what is that innovation outcome, because that's really going to also help to drive a lot of how you answer and move through these questions. As you look at sort of the defined and these measurable outcomes and gates, that will also help you, confirming, as Nadia had mentioned earlier, the technical validity. You're looking at sort of the viability from a commercial standpoint. You're also potentially going to be able to identify areas where there may be inputs, recommendations, insights from, advisory committees or others that may be incorporated into the project at some point, while still sort of determining what that investment is going to be in this solution development. So, sort of big picture things to think about as you tackle this section. Next slide, please. From a technology innovation standpoint, as a collective, you're working on creating your solution, and as part of that, creating a robust IP and data rationale. And some of the considerations and the questions that you're asking yourself around this as you build this groundwork. The build begins at the project concept stage. It's in working through What are you providing? What are you collecting? What might be some of the licensing considerations after the end of the project? At a minimum, they would be on FRAND terms, but what else could that look like? What may that look like? What are the background IP, the data inputs, that are being brought in that others, for example, in your consortia may require access to? Will they require access to them to produce their deliverables or to support commercialization of the foreground IP or, some other portion of that? So again, sort of this is where we sort of talk about some of these hard hills that you're going to have, internally, but also, as a group. In terms of the data sharing, are there agreements that are already in place? If not, what do those pathways look like? What approvals are needed? Are there appropriate systems in place within the organizations? If data needs to be de-identified, especially as we're thinking about within a health context, a project, who in the consortium will do this? These don't all have to be answered at the get-go, but these are sort of some of the higher sort of considerations that you'll need to think through, as you move forward through the journey. And these are questions that will be answered as you're inking that MPA for those that are successful. You're also looking at a shared understanding of roles, of expected benefits for the organizations. You're going to be looking at, what does that look like from a solution architecture standpoint? There are also going to be data governance pieces covered. So ethical, regulatory compliance, security, and the ethical piece especially important now in light of the evolving regulatory landscape. There's pending legislation in Canada, the EU, the United States. Again, what is this going to mean as you're developing and commercializing your solutions? Next slide, please. From a commercial impact, we go back to sort of our innovation model wheel that we saw at the beginning. We're looking at considerations in terms of, how will the consortium sort of share in the benefits of these outcomes? Looking at what is that return on investment and that go-to-market plan, articulated as, what will this look like? To Nadia's point, are there any gaps sort of within the consortium? Is there relevant expertise that project partners bring to the commercial strategy? What does that look like? How will those sort of voices be part of that? Doing a deep dive as well into your competitive landscape, will help to sort of, validate and support what that commercial opportunity and that strategy may look like. And it also, again, sort of shows to highlight and how you coming together as a collective, will be able to go farther more than a single organization could alone and answering some of those insights. Next slide, please. And when we look at the ecosystem impact, and this can mean and be defined in sort of many different ways. There's sort of a larger pan-Canadian global ecosystem. There are, sort of sector-specific ones. There are organizational-specific ones. So they're going to be a combination sort of different things. As we said, there's no one-size-fits-all approach. And so there'll be sort of multiple factors in place. There is when you're looking at this is an identifying, what are some of those complementary opportunities that will help to strengthen not only the positioning and the success of the innovation, but also the benefits to Canada. So that could be, through the advancement of new jobs creation, whether that's through, further fostering academic research, whether that's supporting the growth and scaling of Canadian enterprises, looking at enabling more supply chain resiliency or ecosystem capacity building, and or a combination of all of those things and more. As you work through that, you'll have those definitions there. When you're also looking at this is sort of exploring not only across sort of digital, but beyond, who can benefit from, leveraging of that IP, of opening up new partnership pathways, both nationally and on an international scale. Elevating Canadian thought leadership in the global arena. For example, some projects are part of conversations to try to advance standards, global standards, and are sitting at the table to look at that. So does that sort of fit into where you're going? And also, as part of all of this, you're sort of doing sort of a bird's eye view as well of what success looks like. What are some of those measurements around that, what that impact will look like? And with that, next slide, and I'll pass it back to Nadia.
Awesome, thank you. So through this, the process of the proposal and the call, and as you're going through not only the program guide, the eligibility, and some of those success tips that Jen just walked through, know that there's a lot of resources that are going to be available to you. So we've got the program guides, both the the program guide and the co-investment guide that are available on the website. Like I said, could not recommend this as reading material more than I already have, but I will put another plug for it, that if you're considering putting a proposal, print it out, study it, and take a look at it. On our website, we also have FAQs, and we are updating that so that some of those regular questions that we are getting, we're putting it out there so that you have a place to go to figure out some of those common confusion points that may exist. There are updates and announcements that will be shared on the website. So that's the call to proposals website. They will also be going out through the newsletter. We will have the webinar link, so this link as well as the one we're doing tomorrow for Horizon AI's technology commercialization one. And we will be sharing with all the participants. I know somebody had put that in the question. We will be sharing this slide deck in addition to the webinar recording, so you will have that as reference. And on the website, you will also find the concept intake submission. So that's the online form for you to share your concept ideas with us. You know, if you've got an idea, put it in there. So give us a chance to take a look at it. You know, we aim to get back to everybody within 2 weeks of your submission, and we will let you know if it's a fit for our program or not. We've also got through our website a secret room called the community portal. So this is access to our associates and members only. So associates are people who sign up. You sign a participation agreement. There's no fees associated to it, but it has a code of conduct and it has some values and some basic parameters for non-disclosure and confidentiality. So we're baked into that agreement. And members is the fee-based participation that you've got, and that is for folks who are on projects with us. So on the community portal, you will see our report templates. You will be able to see other of our organizational reports, our annual reports, some of our code of conduct, policies, etc. It is also where you will access the proposal portal. The proposal portal, once you put a concept in, you will get access to this secret room within a secret room that allows you to just get updates on your proposal. It is also where your EOI and your FPP will be submitted. Next slide, please. Yeah. In addition to that, we've got our proposal email. So feel free to send us, you know, if you have questions, you would like to connect, you know, you have a basic concept and you'd like to see if it would be a good fit, drop us an email. You know, there's 2 of us manning that website, and we that email account, and we try to answer within 2 business days to anything that comes over there. Investment lead. So we have a number of investment lead, 3 of us that are providing one-on-one support. You will be assigned an investment lead at time of your EOI invitation. And as investment leads, our role will be to support you through the application process, make sure to answer the questions around fit and eligibility, program guide, budget, co-investment, etc., but also to provide you general guidance on the strength of your proposals and give you a little bit of feedback in terms of gaps or opportunities that you may have missed as you're putting things together. In terms of next steps, so for all of you over here interested in putting a proposal together, another plug for those amazing guides, formulate your project concepts, let us know if you have questions you would like to have a quick conversation, etc., and share your project concept via our website. And that's pretty much it. That's sort of like a quick flash of what we have under this program. I will, we've left some time here to answer any questions. So I don't know, Zane, if you can kind of help on that side.
Sure, absolutely. Let me get the Q&As open. We have the first question is approval required for foreign costs prior to submission or prior to finalizing the agreement?
So we will usually do the approval as, when it's identified. So not during the proposal application, we won't go through the approval process at that point, but during contracting, we will go through it. And we will do the approval process. It usually takes 2 weeks. Most of it is based on demonstration that those costs cannot be done in Canada or by a Canadian resource. So those skills are rare, or you are trying to access something that is not available over here. If during the project, so once you've got your contract in place and somewhere during the process you identify a need, then we will, let us know before you incur the cost. We will get the pre-approval in place. It will make sure that those costs are, if they do get approved, get the co-investment that they are eligible for.
Okay, great. The second one was about the slides, which we have covered, reiterating that the slides will be available on the website. The next is the 35% funding provided post-expense or ahead?
So post-expense. So if you recall the slide, basically what it is that you will need to incur the cost. So it's an cost incurred model. So if something costs $100, you will pay $100. You submit a claim to us. We review to ensure that cost is eligible. It was in Canada, as during the project, is direct to the project activities, etc. When approved, we will pay, we will make a payment of $35 minus the 5% that we would take for the membership fees. So ultimately, members, you would be getting 30% of those costs back.
Great. We have Calvin that asked, will there be any matchmaking support for companies that would be interested in joining a consortium that is open to new members?
Absolutely. So, we are in the business of building ecosystems and making those introductions. If you have a project that you are interested in, or you have you're looking for an introduction to somebody from our member list, let us know. While we're in a call, it's very difficult to sort of support, questions like, oh, I have this I have this solution, can you find me a partner? At this point in the process, if you're looking to be part of the call, it has to be a very, very explicit ask in order for it to be meaningful and to materialize in something for the call. If you're looking for an introduction outside the call, or you're looking for sort of that networking, opportunity, that can be a little bit more open.
Next is the cost of minimum $20 million investment over 3 years. Is there expectation per year?
No, different projects have, different initiatives are going to have a different sort of trend to it. We've seen a lot of our projects have a lot of cost upfront because they're capital intensive. So things like projects that are working with robots or with capital expenditures, sensors, etc., usually have a lot more upfront costs. Others that need to get their data sharing agreements in place, or they need to get infrastructure in place in order to be able to do some of the work, often take a quarter or at least 2 quarters to really sort of ramp up. So we don't have an expectation in terms of how that funding will be used. But as we go through the budgeting process, we are going to be looking at it and make sure that it's reasonable, right? And in terms of reasonable, it's going to be to making sure that the costs don't spike up artificially during certain periods. The costs are not so high and are sort of in conflict with the due diligence or the funding capacity of the organizations. So we are looking at some of those pieces as we go through the budget. So that's part of your the full project proposal. We will be looking at that, and again during the contracting. Once a project is in execution, we have a quarterly check-in where we are looking at spend forecasts and making sure that our projects are sort of have those controls in terms of budget spend. So there's a lot of points at which we're doing that, but the short answer to the question is that we don't have an expectation. It's an R&D project, things happen and shift, and we appreciate all of the flexibility that is needed for projects like that to be successful.
Thank you. Next is, can the target client be a non-Canadian entity?
Yes. In many of our ideas that have come in place, they are non-Canadian. If they will not be able to get co-investment from us unless they have a presence in Canada that is supporting that effort. However, we encourage actually the target client to be non-Canadian. It allows our SMEs and some of our projects to really get ready for the global market, and being part of the global innovative clusters. The global aspect of it is pretty critical to us. I think it is also important to sort of note that some of those costs, we would have to work with you guys to understand if we could co-invest on some of those costs that the teams would have to do in order to deliver to that customer. But yeah, so we encourage it, and we would be very excited to have foreign and global customers be part of our projects.
Great. Next is, will the recording be shared? Reiterating that it will be available on our website as well. After that is, do you provide support to project leaders trying to connect with organizations which are hard to contact, like BC Transplant, for instance?
I mean, if we have a connection in there, we will try our best. Will it materialize into something or move that forward? No. Often we find that they would have to be, if these are organizations that want to work with you, there's usually at least just the starting of kindling to have that sort of, be open to the introductions, because a lot of those organizations, BC Transplant may be hard. It's also finding the right party and all of those things. So if we have the connections, yes, we will be happy to open our Rolodex to you. Can we guarantee that a connection will be made? No, we cannot.
Right. Next, for nonprofit eligibility, 50% of the organization's funds must come from private investments. Is that correct?
Yes. More than 50%. So a majority of yours, so 50.01%. So more than 50% needs to be from private sources.
Great. Is it necessary to have at least one academic partner?
On the technology leadership, yes, it is a requirement. To be an eligible consortium, you need to have, so it doesn't have to be an academic partner. It could be a research institute as well, but we would need at least an academic or a research institute to be part of the project.
Amazing. Next is the minimum project size, $20 million. Is there a minimum amount the lead project partner needs to take on?
No. We've seen lots of variations of it. Often the lead, because they are the future operator, owner, and commercializing entity, we often see that they have a lot of the budget is with them. But sometimes it is also with the customer, who has to make all the changes in their organization and some of the change management that they have to undertake. So there is no expectation that or minimum amount for the lead in terms of the budget. I will say that we do look, like I said, during the FPP, we will do a due diligence on the SMEs and or any other organization that has a lot of investment in the project to make sure that their portion of the budget is feasible and they have enough runway in their cash flow to be able to support the undertaking of this project. I hope that sort of answers that question.
Thanks. Next is this dilutive funding or non-dilutive funding?
So it's non-diluted. So we, so from our perspective, we do not take, I think we do not take any equity in as part of our investment. We're not taking royalty. We're not taking a stake in IP. So we don't do any of those things. Our co-investment is exactly how it was defined. It is meant to demonstrate and sort of articulate the role of sharing and the cost and some of the services that we provide to our our project teams. And so no, there is no, we're not taking in equity or anything.
This is a bit of a longer one, which starts off quite positive. Thank you for this presentation. Most helpful. Can you please clarify what stage the project must be at? Idea, in development, completed, or just starting, or commercialization?
Yeah, so for us, so the technology leadership one, we're looking probably around, in terms of the technology readiness scale, and we're looking at around 4 to 5, though we've started at 0 as well. But generally, this specific program is very much focused on novel technologies and new ideas and new IP. So we see our project teams be on the lower side of the TRLs, with the ambition that through the course of the project that they will start entering the commercial readiness levels, with an early adoption, with an early customer. So we're looking for them to kind of blaze up that TRL and start entering the CRLs as part of the project.
Great. Can a consortium member contribute 100% in kind or a portion?
So to be a consortium, so it depends on the consortium member and the role that the consortium member is playing. So we will often see that some consortium members that are coming in as customers or potential customers or observers or advisors, their contribution is in kind. It is worth noting that our definition of in kind is a little bit different than most. So think of in kind in our view as donation more than anything else. So it's what are you providing to the project where you are not seeking co-investment. However, if you are an industry partner and you are looking for co-investment, we will not be co-investing on anything that is in kind. And so if you are developing technology or you're incurring direct costs, our expectation will be that there will be direct cash costs that you will be putting towards the project. So it really depends on the role of the consortium member and the criticality of them undertaking direct cash costs in order to meet the project outcomes.
The next is, I think referring back to already answered question, minimum project cost was mentioned to be $20 million, and you have a total supply of $65 million for around 10 to 12 projects. This means all projects should be self-funded? Question mark.
So I'm not sure what the self-funded part is. So let me reiterate what those two numbers are, but because they don't all fall into each other. So we're looking for a project total cost of delivery to be around 20 million. So that is the cost of all the project consortium partners put together. So the development, your R&D, any subcontracting services, any legal work that you're doing, IP landscape, etc., commercialization, deployment, evaluation, all of that pieces put together, $20 million at least for that project. We have a funding pool of 65 million. So that means off that 20 million, maybe you get 8 million from us. The rest of it, we are expecting the projects to either self-fund or to be getting funding from other consortium parties. So we often see that if we have a large customer, they may be paying for certain services or work amongst the project. We often see parties kind of supporting the academic partners and research work, etc., through their project. We may also see project teams getting their funding from other sources. So you may be getting, there may be other funds, government or not, that may be supporting some of the work and that leftover portion that is with you. But as part of our due diligence, we will be looking to make sure that our project team members, so the consortium members, can carry at least 1 year of their budget costs, as part of our due diligence work that we will be doing.
Great. Just mentioning that we have about 4 or 5 minutes left of the webinar, so I'm going to carry on asking the questions, Nadia and Jen, and we'll just see how far we can get. If we aren't able to finish, answer all the questions, then I will be taking the questions down that are unanswered, so that we can personally email you or message you with the details later. Next question is, if a company participates into development of new IP in the technology project, would the company still be able to claim SR and ED?
Okay, let me reread that question. Jen, do you know by any chance? Thank you.
Shred. It's around Shred specifically. Off the top of my head, I don't.
So generally, yes. If you're working on our projects, most of our teams are taking advantage of Shred, so you can claim it. Shred is one of the, while other fundings that you're getting, you need to disclose to us. Shred, you do not. So you can use it and you can stack it against the funding that you're receiving from us.
Okay. Next is, has a project funding ever been variable? As in, if the scope of the project increases within the 3-year period as additional partners come on board, which would change the scope of the project?
Yes. So not only do we see that, but we see it all the time. Like, it's not like an off thing. So, it's a 3-year project. The world will change in those 3 years, right? And so what we are asking for our project teams are to phase and gate their projects. And often those are the opportunities for us to be able to collectively, so the consortium members and digital, take a look at the project's progress, learnings, and see if the project needs to pivot. Is your commercial thesis correct? Is your consortium able to meet all of the requirements? We may find that a particular solution doesn't really integrate well, and so we need a different partner. So that might see an exit and an entry of a partner. So yeah, so we do see all of those opportunities sort of come at those gates and validation points. We also may increase our funding if we see the scope has increased, and that is usually if the project is able to demonstrate a very strong commercial impact or benefit within the project. We may also decrease our funding. So that may happen if your commercial thesis is incorrect. Parts of your solution doesn't actually have a commercial output or is not technically viable. So all of those have also happened. We may also see that as you are getting external funding and you're stacking it, we may decrease our funding because you've got other funding to sort of leverage. And so we want to make sure that we are using our funds to support as many of the amazing ideas that come our way, while also maintaining some of our requirements to our funders in relation to industry match. So we can go in both directions.
Great. I think the last one is it necessary to have customers partnership agreement before submitting the intake form?
So at the intake form portion, you don't even need to be a participant. You don't need to be an associate member with us. As you submit it, we will send you a participation agreement and you will get it done. So that would be with the project lead. We would need the participation agreements to be in place, either through the EOI process or the FPP, and that's mostly so to ensure that there is clarity and in terms of values, confidentiality, etc., that are sort of baked into that participant agreement. What we are looking for at the time of intake is for you to be confident that that customer is willing to join the project and support you and the consortium by being present, by being clear, and being able to be that target customer. And also have an understanding that they are reflective of what you are looking for in terms of a target customer.
Okay. I think we're just going to keep going for a few more minutes to try and knock the questions out. We, at the moment, have only 4 more.
Okay.
The next is, does the project have to be fully funded before Digital will approve the project?
So I'm assuming that fully funded means that that you have all the cash for it. We are expecting you to have at least 1 year of the cash for it. So Robert, if that isn't what you meant by fully funded, you can let me know. But we are looking for the consortium members to be able to carry at least 1 year of the project costs.
Great. Next, when the project plan is in place with the budget per year, is the reforecast possible year to year if there is a delay, or is the budget fixed per year after approval?
So our governance structure allows you to do that on a quarterly basis. So what we have found is because of the R&D component of it, and digital in particular, because of the focus on digital, and which means a lot of labor and human aspects of it, we find that there's we do need to forecast, and we need to be able to sort of move with the project team. Having said that, if we see that there's chronic underspending within a project or chronic overspending, we may actually take a pause and say, hey, take a look at your project and reforecast and see if you're going to be able to use, if you're really truly going to be able to use that funding. Like I said, if you're not going to use the funding by the end of the project, we would have wasted it and not funded and somebody else's idea. So we do take that sort of financial control really seriously. And as we are working with you through the project execution, that is one of the places where we spend a lot of time making sure that there is a lot of governance control, not only on the financial side, but also on the delivery side, to make sure that the project is on track. And that is done on a quarterly basis.
Great. Next is, should the lead project partner have to be an early adopter?
So ideally, the lead project partner should be the owner and operator and commercial entity of the solution. Occasionally, we will see like an early adopter or the customer want to take on the lead position, and that is often a capacity, related to capacity and related to other aspects of it. In those cases, though, because we want the solution to not just be for that one customer, but we want to make sure that the owner of the solution has that voice. As part of a project that is structured like that, we are, the consortium parties and ourselves, we work to make sure that it is not just a service agreement where the early adopter is defining and dictating and pushing the project towards their strategic goals. Instead, that the project is moving to ensure the commercialization of the novel technology that is being used. Our preference is on the owner of the commercial products, or at least the core solution, to be the lead.
Thanks, great, Nadia. The last one is not a question, but thank you, great presentation.
Thank you, anonymous attendee.
Thank you.
that wraps up our Q&A. Very successful Q&A today.
Thank you so much.
Nadia, I don't know if there's any closing remarks that you want to put down. Otherwise, all the resources will be available on the website, including this deck that we went through. Yeah, and that's it.
That's it. Well, thank you, everybody, for giving us your afternoon. And I look forward to seeing concepts and some fantastic ideas kind of come to life through this program. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.